And we are here on Thursday to wrap up our This Week's Snack and Learns with an amazing guest who I've known for a long time and love and adore. Welcome, Laura. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Pam. I'm so excited to be here. I wish I
I
had a
know.
snack, actually. I feel like I should have had a snack for the snack and learn, but
Oh, that's perfect. Well, you can have your snack afterwards, and so will I.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
I will
there
be
we go.
talking, so probably not best to be
Yeah,
snacking at the
I
same
should have a
time.
snack, is what we really ought to be saying here. And so, folks, we had a campground a couple weeks ago, and it was one. I love campgrounds. I say sometimes we have 12 people, sometimes we have five, sometimes we have one. Well, we actually got the blessing of a one-person campground about 2 weeks ago in the Profit Concierge, and Laura came, and we got to catch up on stuff. And I got number one, I thought about my brand a lot after the conversation with her. So I said, hey, would you be willing to come on and share some tips for our viewers? And Laura is, first off, the author of this amazing book called Brand Chemistry, which is actually a beautifully done book. To forget about the content for a second, I really like the fact that it has a lot of colors in it, and you can really see them in the table of contents. And she carries that color theme throughout, so that it really is an easy, fun thing to read, not a technical marketing guide. And the other thing I love about it, tons of examples, Laura, hardcore, concrete examples, which is fantastic. So I'm going to do
Thanks.
a formal introduction because I always do. And then we're going to jump into the fun stuff. So, as the founder and chief brand alchemist at Lab Creative, Laura leverages her unique process to help entrepreneurs understand to help entrepreneurs understand and embrace their magic, which we all have, and create explosive brands that stand out from the crowd, attract the right clients, and reach new levels of impact, influence, and success. So if you're not interested in any of those, just hang up now. In her more than 2 decades as a designer and 17 as an entrepreneur, so she knows what we're living, folks. Laura's learned that it takes more than just being really good at what you do to start and run a successful business. Today, she's going to share some of her insights with us into why something called brand chemistry is the key. So, welcome, Laura. First of all, where are you in the world?
I'm based in Toronto, in Canada.
Cold up there yet?
It's officially fall.
There you
Yesterday was
go.
a glorious day. I went out on my bike and it was like, well, we use Celsius, like
Yeah.
15, 16 degrees. So I'm not sure what that is, but it was light
Hot.
jacket weather,
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah,
sunshine. Yeah.
that is
It's
so
pretty
cool.
brisk today, but yeah, we're on our way to winter for sure.
It's so funny. This is my favorite season. And then the only thing I want is I want to have fall, and then I want to have snow, and then I want to have spring.
But snow for like a week,
Just
right?
snow for a
Like
week,
just
and then
I know.
spring. No
Oh,
ice,
Pam.
no long cold season.
Yeah.
I
No
appreciate it. You
darkness.
want to
Yeah.
have it. Yeah, no darkness. That's the truth. So welcome, and tell us a little bit about how you came to come to talk about and work with brand chemistry.
Yeah. So it's funny. So Lab Creative is my second business. So I had another business for 12 years before this. So Lab Creative is about 5.5 years old. And at the time I kind of knew I was shifting a bit of gears. And up until that point, I had been a designer. Like that was my identity. I studied graphic design. I'd worked in design. I was, doing design for clients. I was doing that work. And I was really good at it.
Hmm.
But I kind of realized that I needed to, take a bit of a shift and a step in a new direction. And I wasn't really, I guess, living up to my full potential or
Got it.
whatever that was.
You
I
felt
had
a
a bit of
gap
a,
somewhere.
yeah, little tiny identity crisis, I guess, in kind of
Mhm.
2015, where I was like, okay, I'm meant for more. What's that? What is that? Like, what's the next kind of iteration of Laura? And so it was on a retreat that I went on where I got challenged that I do more than design. And, I was saying, somebody's like, well, you're a branding, you do branding. I'm like, no, that's what somebody else does. I do the design work. I bring the brand to life, but I don't do the messaging and positioning and things. And, I was challenged on that. And they said, based on the answers I gave, they're like, you do this. You just don't have your own process. You haven't created a way that you offer it. And up until that point, I always found that when I was working with companies and got, that foundation, there was always holes that were missing that I had to fill as a designer. So I didn't get everything I needed as a creative person to now create the visual brand.
Mhm.
And so I took everything I learned
Sorry.
from like all of these places and resources, and I developed my own methodology, which is Brand Camp, which is what the book is based on. And to me, it's all about really understanding what your personality is and who you are as a brand, so that you can really leverage your difference and get out there and share that with the world instead of creating a brand that looks and sounds like everybody else. And what
Yes.
I noticed is that in the entrepreneur space, like in corporate, they understand branding, they've got solid brand, they know it's about the experience and the personality and how you show up consistently. But a lot of entrepreneurs go, okay, I need a brand, I need a logo, and I need a website. And so they're jumping to design, but then they're unhappy. They don't feel like it reflects them. They're fitting into a mold that pre-exists in their industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized kind of early on, one thing I've always been really good at is people and distilling things down. I'm not a verbose writer, as you can tell from my book. It's
Mm-hmm.
streamlined. Even my editor was like,
Very
hey,
easy to
we
read.
need to add more. We need some more of this. And because I'm a distiller, so what I do in Brand Camp is I take all of these ideas and I distill it down into really powerful, succinct messaging. And so that's how I really started developing Brand Camp, was really getting clear on what I wanted to be able to offer. And then I hired a designer to do the design work because I no longer wanted to have that role. So now I'm the art director and I am the brand strategist and work with clients on their branding, and I do the speaking and all of that aspect. And so that's really how I got started. It was scary because I was like, I felt that imposter syndrome. Like, who am I? I didn't study this.
Yeah.
All of those things came up for me, and I had amazing people around me to support me, an amazing business coach that was like, just helped me build that confidence. And now I've taken hundreds of people through Brand Camp and have clients with huge success. The designer I hired in the beginning of my business is still with me. She's still working with me. So we have this amazing, work relationship, and we produce amazing work for our clients. So that's the long story for how I
That's
got here.
fantastic. That's not a long story. And I want to pull out a couple things from, excuse me, I'm going to let these barking beasts out of the house so
We're
that we
getting
can
the house
enjoy
tour, Pam.
our conversation. There we go. There we go. But a
Keeping it
couple things
real.
I wanted to pull out on that is that you have the designer skill. You've got that. And then you thought in imposter syndrome, oh, I don't have the experience to be, or no, you didn't use the word experience. You used the word, I think it might have been education.
Education, yeah.
To do this, blah, blah, blah. And I would argue, because we talked about this, that you did have the education, because the education you got was recognizing what was wrong in the brand design process or in the branding process of all the companies you worked for as a designer.
Yeah.
And how their clients weren't as well served as they could be. So it's so funny and insidious, this imposter syndrome thing, because we use these words like educated, and it's like, well, I didn't get my degree in this, or I didn't do my first 17 years in this, or whatever it was. But on the other hand, you do have the education. And not only do you have it, you were able to turn it into something that really works. And what's different about you, and you hid this in this story, is your people skills. You can talk to somebody, and it's a lot more than just, I'm going to write down what you say. Is that true?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
I was at an event a few years ago, and I've been sharing this example with people recently, is that it was at an Archangel event. I don't think you were at this one, but there was an exercise where we had to spend 10 minutes talking to the person next to us. And we each had 5 minutes to share a bit about us and what we do. And then we had to reflect back to that person what we heard. Yeah. And I thought, how could somebody get to know me in 5 minutes? Like, that seems, there's no, and then my partner said to me, you see deeply into people, you pull out the best of them, and you put it into words and visuals. I was like, I don't even know. I was like a total mic drop moment. couldn't
Clearly, you
believe it.
remembered it word for word, so it clearly was
Literally, I
coming
had to
from
write it down because it was so profound to me. I was like,
wow.
that's exactly what I do. It was the most beautiful description of what I do for people that somebody reflected back. And so I tell people there's magic in what other people say about you.
Well, that's right. I was
That's
reading
in the
that in
book.
this.
Yeah,
Yep. I was reading that and I thought that's such a great exercise because we always think when we're doing our own marketing, how do I describe myself? Well, number one, that doesn't matter at all because it's not you who's going to read this, but how do your clients describe you? How do your testimonials describe you? And that you literally go back and pick words out of those.
absolutely.
And it's so much better because we're not ever going to brag about ourselves maybe, but our clients find better words. They find the emotional words because they've had it. This is just one of the examples of fantastic tips hiding in this
Thank you.
gem here. So that's amazing. Do you find it easier or harder or no different at all to work with people who are comfortable talking about themselves versus people who aren't? Like, do you have a way to
Mm.
draw them out? How does that work?
I definitely have people who the process is out of their comfort zone. So the last group that just went through brand camp with me, one woman said, "This is really outside of my comfort zone, sharing about me and that." But she was like, "I'm here. I'm gonna put everything I can into it." But I have to poke, right? Like
Got
sometimes
it.
it's very surface what they'll write in a workbook. And then I'm like, okay, let's dig a little deeper, or and I just start asking probing questions,
Okay.
and then we get to the root of it. And so that can be really important. But I think equally the people that are open to sharing, they can write and have lots of comments, but it's hidden in there. And
Got it.
sometimes you still have to dig deeply with them too. You'd think they'd be easier, but sometimes they're not,
They're not. And maybe
right?
they are talking more about themselves because they haven't nailed down on it. Like me, somebody will ask me a very simple question, what do you do? And it'll take me an hour to answer it. Somewhere in there is the one sentence answer, right? But I
Right,
just don't
yes.
know that I've tripped on it. I love that.
Yeah. Well, that's what
When
brand camp will do for you, Pam, when you join me for
That's
brand camp.
exactly right. Exactly right. And speaking of brand camp, so what I love about the way you've structured your business is there is an entry level program that's not entry level at all. It's really intermediate to high. Here's how you fix your brand
And
process
foundational.
and foundational. And you get out at the end of it. And I love this about anybody who structures their business that way. You have everything you need at that point to go do this.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Brand Camp, what it looks like and how it goes. And then what I'm going to do is ask to steal like what one of the pointers or two that you share in Brand Camp are for people so that they want to just start working on this tomorrow themselves. They could.
Absolutely. So, Brand Camp, I call it a transformative experience for entrepreneurs. It takes place over 2 weeks. We do it virtually now. So, I have people joining me from sometimes all over the world. I've had, the UK and the US and Canada and, some of the Caribbean even. And it's really about getting clear and confident around who you are, who your audience is, how you're showing up, but it's looking at your audience from a different perspective. So we use psychographics. So we want to understand, what do your clients value? What are their challenges? Who are they as a whole person, as opposed to like, where do they live? How much money do they make? What kind of
Got it.
education do they have? Like, that's when you create a cerebral, like a brain to brain connection with people. And so by connecting with the psychographics, the values and challenges and who they are as people, you create a heart to heart connection with your
Got it.
audience. So
Got
the
it.
whole process of brand camp is, how can you create a business that aligns with you deeply, then have the visual expression that connects with that, and then the audience that has a shared value set to you, that just gets you and is like, I have to work with this
Mm-hmm.
person regardless of price or convenience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you create a heart to heart connection, people will choose you because They just know they have to work with you. But
They're
if you're
compelled
working on
to,
more
yeah.
of a cerebral connection, they're going to choose the one that's more convenient or, less expensive.
I
So that
love
heart to
that.
heart connection is all about feeling. So brand camp is about, like you said, it takes you an hour to describe what you do when somebody asks you a simple question. I get people to distill it down. We typically get it down to like 10 words or less.
Wow.
So when somebody says, what do you do? You've got this powerful sentence, and then people are like, whoa, tell me more.
So from the
You don't,
beginning of the 2 weeks to the end of the 2 weeks, and it's really only a commitment every other day during that time period
yeah,
for
it's
the
12
session.
hours. Yeah. And we
Yeah.
do all the work together. That's the beauty of it.
Oh, that's perfect.
There's
You
like
don't
a
send
couple
them
of little
off to
things.
go.
No, there's no
Beautiful.
hours of homework. We're literally workshopping it together. And so you get my brain, but you get the collective brains of all the other participants. And they come with amazing insights too. So you leave with this new community of people that you've deeply connected with. The messaging, you end up with a tagline, positioning statement, a why statement, a personality for your brand, really understanding what are the benefits people get out of working with you. A lot of people focus on the features.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give an example. If I focused on the features of what we do, I would be selling, a brand foundation. I would be selling logo design, website design, social media design, strategy. That's what everyone else sells. I'm selling a transformation. I'm selling confidence and clarity. I'm
Got it.
selling the relief that you feel when you just feel so aligned with your business and it's effortless to be your brand.
I love
That's what
that.
I'm selling. I'm selling the benefits to my clients. I'm not selling the individual features, because then you're competing, then you're selling a commodity. You're selling
Yep.
what everybody else is selling.
And
So
also you help them understand how to make that aligned personality get reflected out in the social media world.
absolutely. So when you have so we narrow it down to 7 to 10 personality traits in their brand. And so we create like this full picture of how does this brand speak? How does this brand write? How does this brand show up? Like, how does this brand dress? Kind of emojis does this brand
Mm-hmm.
use? Or like, does this brand swear? Is this brand cheeky or edgy or conservative? Like, getting a sense of that is really important, because then we want to make sure that your website looks and sounds this way and your
Yep.
social media looks and sounds this way. Too many people have a website that's written in one tone, but their social media is like fun and playful and edgy or whatever, but their website's like super disconnected because they're like,
Yep.
this is the professional face of our business. I disagree. You need to have that thread between all of these things so that no matter somebody hears you on like something we're doing today, probably when you read my book, you could hear my voice.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So I've had people say that when either they hadn't met me and they read it, and then they meet me, they're like, oh, you sound just like your book. Or people who
Mm-hmm.
know me said, your book sounds just like you. So that's important to know
Yes.
that you're getting the real person
Yep, it's
when you're
unmistakably
showing up.
you, and the other word you used a lot was consistency, so
Yeah.
that everywhere they see you, it's you. One of the places, I think one of the things, here's a tip I'll give you, and I don't even know this business as well, is your LinkedIn profile is often this professional thing, and your Facebook profile is often this fun thing, and sometimes those two people look very different. And
Yeah.
it's interesting, it's to me, you really need to make it consistent across everything, because wherever they find you, you want to reiterate that human.
Yeah. And
And it's
so
interesting because I know that in the back of my head. Do I do it? It's like, oh, that's a lot of work. But yeah, I'm with you.
yeah, and an exercise that I often give people is to pull up their website and all of their social media accounts in one browser window and click through the different tabs
I love it.
and look for inconsistencies. Are you using different headshots of you? Is this like a different hairstyle, different hair color, different, like, do you look like the same person? Would you recognize you? If somebody goes to your website, then they go to your Instagram or your LinkedIn, do they know they're in the right place? And
Wow,
if
that's
they
so
have to
cool.
think about it for a fraction of a second, then there's a disconnect. But
Yep.
if they immediately recognize you, then you're doing the right thing. So years ago, I used to straighten my hair. And I often share this story too, because it's relevant. It might sound kind of trite, like, oh, she straightened her hair, because I felt like I had to look a certain way.
A
Like,
certain
oh,
way.
my curls don't make me look as professional. I was quite young. I was 27 when I started my business. I was blonde. I was like, God, nobody's going to take me seriously. That was my own internal voice. But so I straightened my hair for years, and then I embraced my curls. And now I'm so known for that people don't recognize me if I were to
Without
straighten my
them.
hair, right?
Got
Like
it.
my profile picture. So I had to make sure my photos are all of me with curly hair. I've had people recognize me from the back of the head from across the room back when
Wow.
we could be in a room, or like the little picture of your profile. Somebody stopped me on the street a couple years ago and said, "Oh, Laura, right?" And I said, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, we're in the same Facebook group for some business thing." And she recognized me from that tiny profile
From that
picture
thumbnail.
on
Wow.
Facebook. So there's a power in being consistent. Some people think, "Oh, it's boring." But if you have a dynamic brand, I would say I'm uber consistent, but there's nothing boring about my brand.
Yeah. Consistency and boredom are not, don't necessarily, one doesn't lead to the other. I was just having this conversation with my friend Steve Sims the other day about that consistency and also having it reflect your personality. So, you know, your personality is going to get reflected. And once that happens, it becomes unboring, if there's such a word. I don't think there is, but I think that's really, really cool.
Let's go with
So
it.
talk a little bit about Brand Camp. So you've got one coming up very soon.
Yeah. Yep.
Starting November 8th,
November
I think,
8th.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So folks, we have received, yay, an amazing gift. Let me share this. Anybody here listening to this now can get $250 off of that next Brand Camp that's coming up here in about 10 days. So 11 days. So with the discount code prior 250, hit this website up, and I'll also put that website and the discount code in the comments before, when we drop this back in Facebook. But this experience sounds so important to me, because the transformation you're going to make from, I really don't know how to talk about my brand, it's always uncomfortable, I don't know what I do, I don't know what I say, to what you're going to feel at the end from the sounds of it. And listening to you, I know what emotion it evoked in me. I can walk into my next networking event, my next any kind of event, and comfortably aligned with me, talk about what I do in a compact sentence.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's huge. I can't thank you enough for the offer you're giving to the group here.
My pleasure.
And like I said,
And
I'm
I
definitely,
only
go ahead.
No, and I only take 6 people per group,
That's
because
critical.
yes, I think that's just something to note, because it's not like you're one of 20 people or 30 people. You're literally doing this work with me and up to 5 other entrepreneurs. It's usually between 4 and 6 people that, I get every session, and we're doing the work together. So you're not like left with things half done, or we didn't get to you, or you didn't get that support. I'm literally working through this process with you, and I keep it at 6 people because I know that that's how many people I can help maximum
I love
in
it.
a group like this. Yeah,
I love it
super
that they're going to get
personal.
that kind of attention, because that's one of the scary things about groups is, oh my gosh, am I going to get lost on that screen of hundreds of people? No, if you guys are spending 12 hours together in 2 weeks, you're going to get to know each other really well, and have the benefit of 5 other people having input and contribution to what you're doing as well.
Absolutely. And it's a great way to really set up things for 2022. I think it feels like we're kind of coming out of the pandemic. A lot of people are kind of going, okay, what's next? Things are sort of getting back to normal, but things have changed in your business, and you've changed, and you're trying to assess, like, there's such an oversaturation in the digital market, or even getting back to events. And you're like, I don't know how to talk about things, or things are shifting for me. So this is a great way to really get set up for
Clarity.
2022 and dive in with clarity.
Clarity. That's the key.
Absolutely.
One of the outcomes of this is clarity. And I think the other one you said was confidence. And if we can walk into 2022 after the last 2 years we've had with clarity and confidence, to me, that's just a massive win. And there has been an explosion of new blood on the internet doing the jobs that we do. And standing out from the crowd, everybody can, luckily, in this world of massive opportunity here on the internet. But if we stand out, the way we stand out is to be ourselves and to take that energy and make sure we're reflecting it in our marketing. And I think you're just the perfect funnel for that. And I really appreciate the work you're doing out here.
Thank you. Yeah,
Cool.
it's really about standing out. And a lot of people think, oh, if I'm doing something different, will people want that? Like, people are
Mm-hmm.
still questioning, by being really you and standing out, will people not be attracted to that? Like,
Right.
and I don't know if that's because we're putting so much of ourselves out there. Like, being authentic can be scary
Yep.
because you're like, what if people don't like it?
And some
that's
won't. Some
exactly.
won't, but the right people will.
And that's perfect. I give the
Mm-hmm.
example in my keynote about a naturopath that we've worked with, Dr. Lisa Watson, and she's amazing and not your typical naturopath. And so we created this amazing red flame phoenix for her logo, and her tagline is "From burnt out to fired up."
Love
And
it.
so she's she's got red hair and red lips and tattoos and piercings. She hula hoops with fire. Like, she's edgy, and she's
I love it.
amazing at what she does. And so we came up with that during brand camp, her tagline and the personality of the brand and all that messaging. Then we could create this wicked visual representation of who she is.
Yes.
And her practice is packed.
She's
not for everybody, but she is showing up as who she truly is. And she is a magnet now for the right clients.
And think what that means about client delivery, right? You're attracting people who are attracted by you being who you are, which means that when you serve them, you get to keep being who you are. And they're there because of that, not
Isn't that
despite
amazing?
it. I mean, what a concept. Once you take this first step, which really is a big step, it feels scary, but once you take this first step, it's all of a sudden in your whole business, and you can go, oh, right, this is why I'm doing this. I love that.
Yeah. It helps you fall. Like, I've had people say it helped them fall back in love with their business after going through brand camp, right? Because they got disconnected from why they started this business in the first place. And imagine having fun doing what you do. Imagine working with fun clients that bring you joy. And like, we didn't get into being entrepreneurs because it's easier necessarily. Yeah. And people think, oh, it's a slog and I have to do this work for these people. Well, who says? Do the work that lights you up. You're going to attract more of the right clients, and you're going to just it's like a cycle. Like, you're just going to get to do more of the work you love to do for amazing people.
And get more
clients. We can't do that. Exactly. And if you're inauthentic and you're trying to fit into a mold that pre-exists, or you just are kind of all over the place, you won't have that. You'll keep attracting the wrong people, or not enough of them, and people who don't want to pay your fees because you're just one of many offering the same commodity.
Yep. I love it. I absolutely love it. And can you give us one or two things we can do today and tomorrow before this week wraps up, if we need a little bit more brand clarity? Whoops, that was bad. Brand clarity. What are a couple of tips that we can do at home safely?
Yeah. Well, I would definitely say doing that kind of self-audit of your brand. So open up your website and all of your social media accounts so you have them as separate tabs, and flip through them. And even look at things like, are you using the same handle? That's one that a lot of people are inconsistent on. They've got 10 different handles for all their social media accounts. Can you have one handle that is consistent across the board? So ours is Lab Creative Inc. That's you. If you want to find us, Lab Creative Inc. is where you can find us across the board. Are you using, different colors, different fonts? If you've got a Canva account and you're using that for your social media, take a look to see, do I have, my colors set up in there? Do I have fonts that I use consistently? Am I straying into like, ooh, a shiny object, this is a fun looking graphic, let me put that in, but it's not helping people to recognize you. Right?
Oh my God, I'm so guilty of that rabbit hole. This looks cool. Let's do this.
I know. You're not the only one. So that's where things like brand guidelines that we do for our clients after brand camp, we have a whole design process. So everything from a color palette and mood board to logo design, website, social media templates that you
Perfect.
can use in Canva that keep you on track so that you're not, being distracted by all of these shiny objects.
I love it.
So that's one thing I would say, look at things. So I was on a call the other day and they said like this is now your brand, right? This like rectangle. So what does that look like, right? What's your lighting like? How do you dress when you show up for these things? What's in your background, right? Like are there things you could be doing to improve your visual, how you're showing up on a call or on a video? How does that represent your brand? And
Mm-hmm.
does it? And is there things you could do? Like I've got my book here to add that little splash of color. I've got some
Mm-hmm.
plants. I've got, my autographed guitar that people always ask about. It's like a conversation piece. So it's like, what could you be doing to elevate your virtual presence when you're
Mm-hmm.
doing things like that? So that's another little tip.
Fantastic.
Trying to think if there's anything else.
Well, that's plenty for
I
us to
think
work
those
on. I
are,
think
yeah.
we got some gold nuggets out of you here, and you've thank you for staying on with us, because I think that stuff we can walk away with today and tomorrow, and I think that's so important to be aware of that stuff. I know one of the things that I don't pay enough attention to is my background. Well, I make the excuse that my dogs are my brand, so you're going to see them in the background wherever I am, but that's something that's so easy to make a couple tweaks to. And it doesn't mean you have to create a gorgeous studio. It
No.
just means you think about what's behind you and where it is and how it's positioned and how you look in the context with it. And spending the time on those things really does make a difference.
Yeah. I'm literally in the corner of my bedroom right now.
I
Just so
love
you
it.
know.
And nobody would guess that in the least.
Nobody would guess this. So it's the one spot where, especially during COVID, because we ended up letting go of our office space, our kids were home. So both my husband and I have been working from home, and where we were working, like there's no doors, we're both working. So I'm like, I need a spot where I can do calls, where I have doors.
Yep.
That I can close to
Yep.
keep the noise out. And so we set up this little, I have like basically a nightstand with like a piece of wood sitting on it that was in our basement, with like a stand for my laptop and a light right by the window, with this nice kind of vignette behind me. And this is just where I do my calls.
It's absolutely perfect. Yep. I love that.
It's nothing fancy. It's just finding that right little spot where you can set
and
yourself
folks, it
up.
doesn't have to be your desk, right? That's what I'm hearing. So and you're making me think I could go into our music room with the piano and do it there. I could, I just happen to work here, so I do my calls here, but you can do your calls someplace else.
Yep. I do my calls here. I work somewhere. I have my desk somewhere else in the house.
I literally never considered that. I mean, it's so funny how we get set in habit, right? It just never occurred to me, oh, well, let's go film. I think I did one snack and learn in there because I was talking to a musician. But why not do more in there? It's a great backdrop. Anyway, that's amazing, the stuff we don't think of, isn't it?
Now you've got some things to think about. So your next one, you're going to have a new setup, right?
Yep. I definitely am. And thank you so much for taking the time with us today, folks.
My pleasure.
Another gold mine snack and learn. If you are at all confused about your own branding, if you feel like it's hard to zero in on what the right 5 or 10 words are to talk about what you do, definitely reach out to Laura. One of the things you can do, I'll pull this back up, is get information about the brand camp. But at least check out the website, get some great ideas for yourself. Laura is a saint, and this book is available as well. And I will tell you, she gifted me a few copies. So if you're interested and you drop that in the comments down here, whether you're watching on replay or live, I will give you until I run out of 4 of them that I have designated for this use. So that's another freebie from our friend. So thank you so much. And
my pleasure.
We'll be talking to you again soon.
Yeah. So one thing we can add too, if you want, Pam, I'll send you the link, or I'll add it into the comments. If people want to book a call with me to talk about, just either working together or brand camp or whatever.
Do you want to drop that into the private chat real quick, and then I'll put it in the comments? We have to add that. That's awesome.
There you
There we
go.
go.
So if you want to add that, so if people want to, check out the brand camp, but if you want to actually have a call with me and learn more about how we could work together, would love to connect.
This is great. It's coming up now. It's in the comments for you. And just in case you're watching,
Sweet.
it's right there on the screen. So thank you for that. That's amazing.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Pam. This was fun.
This was fun. Everybody have a brand-friendly Thursday and a great weekend coming up. And we'll see you again next week with next week's Snack and Learn. Actually, no, I can't remember. We may have one next week, but I'm going to be in Austin next week doing a couple of events. So I'll be popping in live now and then to say hi and see how everybody's doing. I can't remember if we have a Snack and Learn set up though. So, but we have a good 55 to 60 of these here. So look at them. And if you're interested in brand information, this one's hot and at the top. Take care and have a great weekend.
Thanks. Bye, Pam.